Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
good, and you?
I am okay.
I was just trying to use this moral link that you sent.
Yeah, does it let you in?
Uh, I clicked on the continue as visitor.
Mm-hmm.
That works?
So you can see it.
Yes.
You
Uh,
probably can't edit it.
yes, I can see mode and data connections and other things. Yes.
Yeah. Yep, that's what it's for.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
Good. How are you, Zaida?
Good. And you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Could you get into the murals, Rayul?
Mm, mm, yeah, but let me.
It's a little awkward. Like it takes some learning.
It's fine. Do you mind if I ask for access through another account,
Sure.
another Gmail account?
Okay, yeah. Let's see.
Editor request.
And it should be, you should be able to get it with the link because I didn't give you access. I just gave you view access.
Oh yeah, okay. That then it's fine. Okay. Yeah.
So the deal is that you can have anybody view it, but I think you have
Mhm.
to have a paid account to edit.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah.
So
So it looks like now.
I can actually have three people edit and you may be for free, then
Oh.
you may be one of them
Mm.
eventually, but right now you're not.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
So and it's not cheap. It's like $9 a month.
Okay.
So I only want three people to be able to edit it because I already am paying for something else.
Okay.
And I just, it's like how much how much do you want to donate to productivity software?
It's fine. You mentioned earlier, like a few months back, maybe you and Taylor were working on a product management tool, something like that.
Yeah, so Taylor set up Monday and then she quit.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Let me know if you need any help with that. Yeah.
are you accustomed to that?
No, but I can learn with you.
Yeah. So Monday is nice because it allows you to delegate tasks, but it doesn't let you make sketches like this, or
Okay.
maybe it does. So I'm paying for Monday,
Oh,
but I also don't want to pay for murals.
okay. Okay. We can talk about it later too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you get
Uh,
three free, but then after that you have to pay.
I
Hey,
know.
Adam.
When I was a PhD student, I used to use Lucidchart. So that's really good for creating flowchart and everything. But you
Mm,
can create a flowchart only one at a time. If you want to create another one, you have to delete the former one. Otherwise, you have to pay. So yeah,
yeah.
kind of
Yeah, I
tricky.
think it's the same with this, that you have a very limited number of, or very limited access, and then you have to start paying, which,
Mm,
it's a good business model. I just don't want to pay for everything.
understand, yeah.
And Miro I've used, but Christian Laurent uses Miro, so I
Uh,
already have my maximum number of things on Miro. So I had to use this one.
Okay.
So I guess I can start talking to you folks before the others show up. I think how Narasimha characterized it is a little more general than I want to do today. So he was talking about, let's talk about all the things that affect adoption of heat pumps. I feel like we've done that to death, right? I want the data. I want to understand how we can represent people heterogeneously. If it affects their adoption of heat pumps, that's fine. But I think we need to get more heterogeneity. And so, Zara, I think you don't need to figure this out because Raidul or I is going to send you a like a building age and type, and then the heterogeneity is already set by the input. Does that make sense?
Yes, great. Yes.
Yeah, so you don't have to seek the heterogeneity because you're already representing it, and we'll just send you the inputs. But we need the inputs that are correlated. And currently, I'm not able to get those from Kartik. But I don't think it's because we can't get them from Kartik. He's just not. We have not demanded them. So I think we would like to demand them. But they have to be here. So I don't know where they are. Come on, guys.
Yeah, before we will be able to talk about it in the in one-on-one meeting, but right now, Tammy, the ABM model is capable of taking on all the heterogeneous CSV data and connect it to the household, just to let you know.
Your model is?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we just need the data.
Sorry we're late,
Hey,
everyone.
you're both on the beach.
Yeah. We decided to just team up since I was in campus and we met for my lab group just before this. So hi, Adam, welcome. Yeah, so I think today we want to discuss heterogeneity, integration, fusion, spew, ABM. Tammy, you said you wanted to kick off with a few questions, comments, slides.
Well, I have, I sent around the link to a murals board so I didn't make any slides. I'm just going to keep this board as our record.
Okay,
So,
I'm just opening it now.
and I don't know, I haven't given everybody edit access because I think you can have 3 editors before you have to pay. So,
Okay. I don't even know this.
and I can share my screen with it. But it may be easier for you to look at it on your own so you can zoom in.
Yeah. So
So
I'm looking at this central
Yeah.
one,
Yeah, I wanted to start with that.
model and data connections.
Mm-hmm. And just want to make sure that everybody agrees that this is what we're doing. So I think that Kartik is able to generate a description of heterogeneity among different places with ACS fusion. And those are getting sucked into either Raidul's ABM or my cohort model. so that you start with a heterogeneous population. And I've been working with with Raidul a bit, and I guess what I find is that so far that what I thought is true, that the function of our models is really, really similar, except that he has individual agents and I run them as cohorts with a specific number of members who can transition out of a cohort or into a different cohort. But a key thing that we've all been thinking of is the decision rules. And so those decision rules require some operating cost as part of the decision. And that's what Zara has been working on. So her building object is really taking the heterogeneity of res stock, and we say, either Raidul or myself says within the model, okay, I want heating energy for a certain thing, a certain type of building, and then her model just returns it, but it's kind of a hybrid of using res stock data and some calculation, which I think she can talk about sometime. I am recording. Yes, thank you. It records automatically now.
And so your decision rules are generally in that light gray box because they're informing both models,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
In fact, you're trying to use the same decision rules for the agents.
I think that
to
would
the
be the deal.
So it raises two questions, I mean, obviously you're doing slightly different things, otherwise why do you have both? And so how do you articulate, you want common rules? Is it fair to say that some of the rules that you have in the cohort model may not apply to his model because he's looking at sort of the household decision in particular, whereas you're looking at perhaps some other rules that influence the cohort?
No, it's really the same thing. So in answer to why do we have both models? So I'd suspected, but I didn't know that they were going to be so similar. So that's one. The other is I'm curious if I think there is one big difference between them currently, and that's really a tweaky thing, but it lies in the level of traceability, maybe, because it's not that either model is untraceable, but what I'm learning by working with Raidul, and you can pitch in, is that like all the data have to be hard coded into the model as rules, whereas my model has been sort of created to ingest the rules from descriptions. So it's a matter of how they're coded. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Like I'm working on my model all this time, expecting that sometime I'm going to stop and the ABM is going to be better, and then I won't need to work on it anymore. But I don't know yet. And so then the decision rules, no, it's a cohort of households. So it is a decision at household level. So the rules are not different. It can, I believe they both could respond to market conditions. So I probably need to make a whole slide about decisions. But so I believe this is true of the agent, so Raidul, correct me, but the cohort can look at it can take input, or it can look at the conditions of whatever government's attached to it. It can look at its own conditions. And then there should be some decision rule. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Maybe we can just make this a topic for a different meeting, because now I'm not sure about the difference between the agents and the cohorts, because you have cohorts of households. If there are agents that are influencing the decision, then you need the other agents as well.
Yeah. Like
Okay,
I
okay.
said, they're turning out really similar.
Okay,
I was not aware that they would turn out similar
yeah,
before we started because we did not have an agent-based modeler.
yeah, that's fine. This is the whole process of this is how it goes. So, but you wanted to discuss the heterogeneity part, so let's focus on that.
Yeah.
Um, so how are we going to determine, this is a very deep question,
Yeah.
like what are the characteristics that are the most important to distinguish behavior across households? Because, to my mind, from what I've learned from the literature, which I'm quite steeped in now, we don't know. We really don't
Yes.
know.
I agree. So I want to not get stuck there though. I mean, I want to retain the
No.
humility that we don't know, but I also want
Yeah.
to start with the example that I gave in the last meeting. Because I feel like it's going to be informative for us to do something concrete, even if there's a whole lot of uncertainty. So the example that I gave was, and this is where I want Kartik to weigh in. Within a Puma, I'm currently given an average income by Kartik. And I'm currently given an average house size. Now, we would imagine that house size has some dependence on income.
Yes.
And we would imagine that building energy consumption has a dependence on house size.
Right.
So then when we compare the income to the building energy to assess, say, what fraction of a person's income that is, then we have an inherent kind of blurring of the heterogeneity that's really there.
Yeah, and typically, you can run a regression of your building energy consumption on the house size, the income, floor space income, and household members, I guess, or whatever it is that you think are important to model.
Yep.
And you draw out from that, even just by looking at their correlation, if they're not completely multicollinear, then you know they're distinct, and then you want to see which one is the one driving the energy consumption. So that's one way of revealing the dimensions of heterogeneity. You throw in a bunch of potential drivers, you put in a climate variable, and that tells you what spatial granularity you need, because that's also heterogeneity. And with fusion, we could do that.
And you can do it without fusion as well. If you take any independent survey like REX or AHS.
Or AHS. You don't
You
need
can-
fusion unless you're using explanatory variables that are from a different survey.
Correct.
Yeah.
So even if you just took REX, energy consumption, and ran a regression, and we can sort of draw out what's important and what's not. But depends on what variable we're looking at, because in any of these there's no change, right? It's all
Yes, it's
static.
cross-section.
Cross-sectional. So we like energy consumption versus size, income, climate, all of that. And then energy consumption becomes our variable of interest. So there is,
I mean, typically,
I want to
Yeah.
get from what we could do to what we're going to do.
right. Well, so we have to discuss the possibilities. I mean, the other is, if you want to start with simple and expand out from all the work we've done in the past, I know that climate and income are the two most critical drivers. So spatial, to the extent you need the spatial granularity has to be judged. But spatial granularity and income of the household are the two most important, because the income is very closely correlated to the physical house size.
Right. So can we just focus on those as an example? So I don't want to run a regression for household energy because Zara's building object is telling us how much heating energy there is for a certain kind of house. And that is based on NREL's res stock, which has done all this work on heterogeneity and calibrating to observed energy use. And so I don't want to run a regression to get built. I want, here, maybe I'll just, or you can convince me to run a regression, but you're going to have to convince me.
I mean, if you don't want to run a regression, we can just, slice the income into categories and can give you average house size for each income category. So for example, you could slice up the income distribution into, let's say, 10 buckets, and then you could get average house size for each of those income categories. That could fit into your model if you don't want to run a regression.
Okay,
Instead of
so
just getting an average, house size and mean for a Puma, you could get like a finer distribution of that.
yeah, so what does it take to do that? So I would like to talk about first exactly how we do that. And then we can start like adding things like, oh, we really need to have this other thing, right?
Right.
But I would like to take this simple example if it's okay. Now, Narasimha, if you want to say, no, don't do that. Do something else, right? Like do a regression in this way instead of what you're doing, then I'm happy to listen to the argument. But I think we've already gone down the path of having these two things. I don't know how to use this this tool yet, but these two things go to like that, right? This is another.
Are you pointing to stuff? Because I'm just looking at a blank mural slate. Sorry.
Oh, you have to, hold on.
Oh, you're sorry. Okay, here you are. No, we're back to the Zoom.
I can call you, actually, I think.
No,
we see it. We see it.
We see it. It's just that we had the mural
I
screen up.
moved, but let me figure out how to call. I'm learning this too. I've been in rooms where other people used it, but I haven't run it myself, so it's being less effective than it could be here. Okay, so we have this connection and also this this here, I'll put something else.
So can I suggest this is not what I'm getting at is not regression versus no regression.
Okay.
What I really want to say is that there's a prior question. You can do this, but you're making implicit assumptions here about what's driving the decisions. So what I think we need to do is say more about the decision rules before you can say be definitive about heterogeneity, because what's driving the decision will influence what dimensions of heterogeneity matter. It's not just
agree
estimating energy use, right? Like, for example, what you're trying to distinguish households based on how they make different decisions, right? If the decision is adopting a new heating equipment, then if we decide what matters is the age distribution of the equipment, then you need to know what is influencing the age distribution of the equipment. And is that something that's deriving from the Restock data? Is that the dimension you want, where you have cohorts of age distribution as your dimension of heterogeneity? Right, for example, but there may be other factors. If it's trust in government to accept a rebate, what's differentiating households in terms of trust of government? That would be a dimension of heterogeneity you have to include. So I think starting with income and climate is great. It's because it's definitely important, but income is just a proxy at this point. The climate will influence the operating cost, but then implicitly you're talking about economic payback as your decision rule.
Yes.
Which is fine. So I'm saying we should have that conversation together. What are assumed decision rules and what dimensions of heterogeneity we want?
Okay, So so I partly agree, and I don't disagree, but yet somehow I only partly agree. So I guess I agree that we should have a collective decision on what rules are going to be in. But what I don't, I also feel that this sort of hedging around, we need to figure out a bunch of decision variables, has prevented us from doing anything and being able to explore any kind of model. And that's something that I would like to change. No, come on.
I agree with that, Tammy, but I think that just increases the urgency of determining decision rules. So start with a simple decision rule. You know, if you want it to just be economic payback for now, and have an age distribution that triggers what part of the stock is going to consider the economic payback. That's pretty much, you know, where the literature is. So that's fine. But then you could still justify differentiating income because people's discount rates are different. You know,
I
at least
agree.
low income versus high income. And then geography. So you decide that climate zones. So climate zone, income for discount rates, and then physical house size because it affects operating cost. And you're done for now.
So, what do you think that drawing a diagram like this is helpful? And then if you want to add something on there, then like what would be the next thing that you would add, right?
You don't have any social demographics in this.
Well, income is kind of the proxy for
Yeah.
that, you know. I mean, I don't not sure about the value of this chart. I mean, the question I would ask is, from the data set, can we come up with groupings? So if we group by climate zone, within each climate zone, what's the housing, the income distribution, and how do you want to slice the income for differentiating discount rates? You just maybe low income, high income to start with, or you want to do, you know, and then we can use the data set to produce real data for the size of the groups by climate zone, by income.
Equipment type, maybe? Like
Yeah,
it's-
so you need a full representation of the heating stock, the heating equipment stock,
Mhm.
and then the age distribution.
Sorry. Yeah, so that will be here. So it's actually,
What do you mean by house type? Is that the heating equipment type? Or
Yeah,
rental landlord?
yeah, I'm putting it in here.
Could also be single family apartments.
Is this more clear? So clumsy. So there's the heating equipment type and you mentioned its age, so there. But then you have a decision that will eventually affect that heating equipment type and age.
But I would say that box may be there too, but it also should be separate and going into the decision rule because that's it's a prior to the economic payback assessment, right? So this
Yeah,
box
that's
should be
true.
feeding directly into this.
Okay, so it and
The
why
trigger, I mean.
why is it that is that because that affects its reliability?
No, it's because you're deciding whether or not to consider the economic payback based on the heating equipment age and type. If it's
Isn't
a
that
brand new gas
okay?
furnace, they're not going to be doing this assessment, are they?
Right, okay, so let's see, how do I frame that? It'll be something like,
I would say it should come down here and go into the decision.
okay, give me a minute though.
Or you could make,
I'm more concerned about getting the arrows. So, tell me what aspect of the age, how would you frame that? I know what you mean, right? People are not gonna buy a heat pump if they just got one.
yeah, so the decision rule would be only those in the building stock with equipment age greater than 10 years or whatever, 15 years.
Can I call that prior investment or something?
It
Because
just age.
there's a couple of things that the age affects. And then that goes directly to the decision. Is that what you're saying?
You know, we were using the term the trigger function, right? It's the I would use that term because it may not be an investment, it may or it's
okay.
long in the past.
Okay, so maybe, okay, so look, I'm gonna call this then trigger function or triggered.
Yeah, it's like a two-stage decision.
Okay,
And that would feed into the, yeah, exactly. That would feed into the other one.
and then there's decision, like choice or something.
Yeah,
Is that acceptable?
yeah.
Okay. You okay with that now? Better, anyway?
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't
and
know
then,
if you need do you need the prior investment box anymore?
well, the prior investment, there's some, isn't there some, like, I just got one? That's what I was
That's
trying to
the
get.
age because the age is 0 then, right? Or the age is 1.
Yeah, but what is the person thinking? Like the age does not, somebody doesn't think, oh, the age is 0. Somebody, they rather think, I just invested in this.
But the model doesn't, this is the model, right? The model is thinking age is 0. That's good enough. That's all I need to know.
Okay, well, I'm willing to take that off, but I feel like there's a decision component there that is not being represented. Okay.
So maybe you're thinking of multiple triggers. It's not just age,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah. So then reliability is a good one to put, but I would not put the heating equipment through reliability. I would make, oh yeah, because it may be influenced by the age.
Yeah, this is actually, sorry. This goes over here. I'm doing this all totally wrong. Don't look, everybody.
You're brave doing this in real time like this.
Okay, so the heating type goes to heating cost and the building energy use goes to crap. This sucks. Okay, don't watch me. I'm gonna try to get it right.
That's
Just-
okay. I mean, but I thought we should just discuss a little bit about how you're going to come up with these groupings because it's not trivial.
Well,
So
okay, so, well, hold on. Okay, and then this is gonna go, reliability is gonna come down here, and, you know, in a very nice flow diagram, none of these arrows would cross, and they're crossing, so this is just a terrible topology, but we're just gonna have to live with it for right now. Oops. No. Okay. So the heating equipment and age combined with the building energy use need, I would say, gives you the heating cost, which then affects the economic payback. The heating equipment type and age also gives you something about reliability, which leads to a trigger decision.
Yeah, okay.
Are you,
Uh,
does this represent what you were trying to say? Because it seems like you felt these are really important pieces, so I want to make sure they're represented well.
Yeah, it's fine. It's one way to do it. I mean, the main thing is to have these two parts of the decision. And, we had to make it simple, use the age distribution to start with. If we want to condition that on some reliability, that's fine. And then only those that pass that test will consider the second stage decision.
Yeah.
And that decision depends upon an economic payback, which depends upon income. Why? I would say discount rate. So far, it's the only reason we've talked about having income. If you want to have a simpler model, you don't need that. Yeah, exactly. That's what I would claim is the purpose of income. And then you have the operating cost, the heating cost. Okay, so you need to put in somewhere a new box on the heat pump cost, right?
Yeah,
And it could be a dimension of heterogeneity because maybe the cost of heat pumps, the cost of installation will be different depending upon the contractor availability and stuff like that. So that may be worth including. So
Of tenure, renters versus
rent
owners.
versus owners.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're investing in a new heating equipment,
Mm-hmm.
we have to decide if you're going to look at tenants. We have to think about what we are going to do about tenants.
Mm.
Are we allowing them to invest? And if we are, then yes. Then we have to see, well, is their behavior different or is it the same as a single owner?
Mm.
Why would it be different?
I feel like they're
I'm-
less
I'm-
likely
I'm
to invest
missing-
in the
I-
house, right?
not
We're
quite.
discussing about whether the dimension of tenancy matters, landlord versus tenant, which I think has to be thought through, and talked about.
Yes.
It's definitely an important one. I would
So-
say to start with owners, just to make it simple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is something though that I'd like to bring in here that I think can be done relatively simply. And that is what Chris turned out, was talking about, which was also in that Nature article, which is the perceived length that you're gonna be, of time that you're gonna be in your house, which sometimes has to do with your age.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that note that Zara just put. So this is when it starts to get complicated, you see, because people have studied the effect of these dimensions independently.
Yeah,
And we don't know the cross product of these. And this is literally, we don't know. So what are we going to do about it? You have to make a decision because you're doing a model. And the obvious way to do it is that every income group gets an age distribution, for example. And to make it simple, every income group gets the same age distribution, so that you at least incorporate the effect of age, but you don't pretend that you know how age distribution differs across different other dimensions. So I've seen that done before too.
so can I talk about some of these? Because we have sort of draft ways of thinking about them. So I'm gonna look at Zara's note. Yep, that's right. Zara and I were thinking about the same thing. Cool. So there's a couple of things that I want to figure out how to do very soon. And that is the correlation among the house type. And let's say within a particular Puma, because those are Kartik's, or those are the units of analysis that Kartik has presented to us. So within a Puma, can we have a correlation of house type, house size, and income. We can pick other ones too, but I'm particularly interested in those
What
because
do you mean by house type?
house type is like a detached mobile home.
Mhm.
And
Making
those
an
are
idea about it.
those are already things that Kartik has communicated. So I'm not asking for anything that Kartik doesn't have. The question is whether we have a correlation. Now, you have raised the idea of the heating or the heating equipment age as a decision trigger. And the way I'm handling that currently in my cohort model is I just start each group of, so I do have a completely random factor in there, which is how long does a heat pump last? Or how long does a furnace last, right? I don't know that. I'm using 18 years. I'm using a logistic function with 18 years as the midpoint. And I can change
Mhm.
that pretty easily. And I can change the steepness of the slope pretty easily.
Mhm.
And so for each age cohort, like say 1940 to 1950, I'm starting with new heat pumps in each year, just average, and then I just let them age.
Mhm.
So that you're probably going to end up with something like uniform distribution. But it's that function applied by house age. So you end up with kind of a natural distribution of ages within that group of
Mhm.
houses.
Mhm.
Yes, that's fine. It doesn't have to be, I mean, every unit will have an age and it'll evolve over time. So you don't have to figure out, you have to only figure out the starting point, like how many in each of your groups, what age distribution do you have, or the other way around. So the only one we can use for that is Rex, because it's the only one that tells us equipment age.
But so I don't need the age necessarily. I might compare it with Rex. But what I'm doing is taking, say, 1940 to 1950. I'm starting them with heat pumps born in 1941, 1942, 1943, et cetera. And then I just let those heat pumps age according to a logistical or what I call a life logistic, which is the derivative of the logistic function, retirement function. Does that make sense?
So when you say 1940s, 1950s, you mean the age of the building according to the
The
survey.
age of the building. So each building starts with a new heat pump. And then I just run it from 1940 to now.
Yeah, okay. So
And that
all
doesn't
I'm
change.
saying is you can get a more realistic age distribution from Rex
Yeah,
as a
maybe.
starting point. That's
Yeah.
all.
Mm-hmm.
Because a 1940s building would have replaced it multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And you're hit and miss with your algorithm, right? It could be fine,
That's right.
but you might as well start with real data.
That's right.
Um,
I'd probably compare it with Rex.
okay, that's fine. You can
Right.
calibrate it to Rex,
And
for example.
and
Yeah.
I can, so, okay, I'll note that here. I was just starting. I'm gonna just mark that as a note, things to check, and I can work with Kartik to get that kind of information.
So
But I
if I'm
think,
going, yeah, sorry, finish your thought.
well, one of the reasons I'm doing that is because it's probably driven in part by the age of the houses within a Puma. And so Kartik has given me currently sort of in a Puma house size, the fraction of those houses that are different types, the fraction of those houses that are different heating equipments. But I'm currently not assuming any correlation between those, which
Mhm.
means that like all mobile homes have the same distribution of heating equipment as all detached homes, which is probably not true.
Right. So I guess I can think of two ways to sort of, address this. One is, we can slice the house size and equipment size. So you could get for a given house category of house type, what is what are the different categories of equipment. So that's not really a regression or like a correlation thing, but you get finer granularity on that slicing, or you could run like a correlation matrix or something between these 3-4 characteristics, and you could get those numbers as well. So I think it depends on what is easier to feed into your model. I guess what would be more like which way would be more useful for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess those are the two ways I can think of to address this with more granularity.
Yeah, so I think it would be great to have, we probably need a period to just have that discussion of how you would communicate it over. I know how it could work for me. I think Raidul would also be sampling from that distribution. And we may not have the same ways that we want to intake, but there's probably one way that is kind of average best for both of us.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, it should be easy to do either way, just what feeds into the model, or the way it gets into your model.
You'll have a distribution of each of the variables.
I mean, just the number of slices, like how many slices you want to make, right? Like
But that's not arbitrary. How are
arbitrary,
the slices you choose?
but it depends on how you this is of a model, I guess. If you want
That's the thing.
size plus equipment, then you make slices of those. It is arbitrary in some sense, unless maybe you all come together and make a list of variables that we think are most relevant.
Well, if you just start with those 2 or 3 variables, the slices are arbitrary. How many and
How many, that is also arbitrary.
No, I mean,
Well, because equipment type is 6 or 7
equipment
types.
type is clear.
House size, if we have by square footage, like 10 categories.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
Narasimha, just so you know, your voice is kind of fuzzy, so I don't know if it's the
Oh.
angle to the microphone or something, because I was hearing
Yeah.
Kartik much more clearly than I was hearing you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just saying that there's some arbitrariness in the slicing of each dimension.
Yeah, that's
And,
what I want to get at here.
But I don't think there's any way around it, unless you try to make, yeah.
I agree, but I think that's also a thing we have to agree on. And so that's why even though this decision model is poor right now, I'm also interested in there's an iteration between the way we set up the decision model and the data that we input into it. And you keep pointing that out, right? Like you have to have something to put in, but you also have to agree on what you're putting in. And I feel like we've been going around the circle, so I want to start the circle. Maybe we can spiral outwards.
So my suggestion is you have the highest granularity with the rest talk. You have all these archetypes that they have created, and it's synthetic. You don't know all the different aspects that have fed into that. So you want to keep those archetypes, and I would make the other dimensions very simple. So you have a low-income group and a high-income group, just to create a stylized difference in the discount rates. And then you have, few slices of house size, and maybe those slices overlap but are not the same for all the groups because low income have smaller houses, maybe. That we look at the data and find out. Or we just use, actually, house size, isn't that within your archetype definition in ResTalk? They must be. It must be part of the archetype definition.
So it's not really archetypes, really. I mean, I think
It's just 9,000 households. There's no groupings. I mean, you can create groupings, I guess, based on the categories. Is income one of the group dimensions in ResTalk, the 9,000 households?
so. Yeah, Zara, correct me if I'm wrong, but these 9,000 households are also associated with locations. Yeah, and so the building object is just filtering and extracting the relevant archetypes out of those 9,000, but it also has to do with location.
Which is good. So you have that already. So the only question is, does it have income?
I don't believe it does, and I think that is, and I don't know that I want that.
Oh, why not? That gives you for free your income dimension, because obviously his data set from which he developed the synthetic data set had the full heterogeneity of all the dimensions, including income. I know they had income, Eric told me, but you should double check if your 9,000 households, if the dimensions includes income. That'll make your life easier, I think.
Maybe. I think that discussion will take longer than we have left. So I will note that as a discussion we need to have.
Even the house size should be in that. If his floor space size would be in the ResDoc data set. It
Yeah,
should be them as well.
it is. It is. I think one of the things we're trying to capture that is a significant dimension of heterogeneity is that the homes were built to codes, and those codes affect the insulation levels. And those are quite different. And that's some of the really valuable work that ResDoc has done, is parsing that out so that we don't have to. And those codes, of course, differ by different states, climate zones, and so on. So I think that discussion about whether we should take the income from ResDoc or from Kartik is probably like half an hour. So I don't want to do it now, but I'm going to flag it for something we should discuss because it seems to be an open question for you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so where should we go next?
Well, so let me just, so you said you want to do house size, income, age, and house type, I guess.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. And if we decide to take the income from ResDoc, then we can eliminate that. But I think we should talk about how to get this from Kartik.
I mean, it should be easy to make those slices. I mean, one thing I'm worried about is this the error bars that will come up. I mean, they'll come up and it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, slicing it too fine, we just run into that trouble. So
Could you maybe, you've described a couple of ways through this, Kartik. Could you maybe just write up a little paragraph about what you would do? Or I think you had two options, so maybe either slides or a paragraph summarizing what you propose and what the output would be.
yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that should be easy to do. Yeah, I think the first idea was just the way we've been doing it so far. So just the slices that I've been sending you. So just to make, finer slices.
How do you
And
make
we'll have to,
finers? I thought you had Pumas was the finest.
well, geographically, Puma is the finest, but in terms of heterogeneity, we can, slice it even further.
Okay.
So
I
if you
think
want to
it
throw,
might be good to know like what the data output would look like, because I think I visualize something when you say slices that may not come in the output.
okay. I mean, the way it would look like is for each, let's say for income category, you could have, let's say, for example, from 0 to 20,000, if that's the household income category. So what are the house sizes that fall in that category of income? So what would be the distribution for that particular income category? So that would be the way the output would look like. You have that for each income category. And if you want to add, owner versus tenant on top of that, so you just have that sort of splitting into, again, two blocks. So that is how it'll ultimately get you. And the other way was just making a correlation matrix of all of these. And then you just then you'll have to make a decision
Mm.
as to
I see what you
which
mean.
ones to pick and which ones to drop.
Okay. Yeah, I think that needs a discussion. And if we are using our modeling meetings for other things, then we can try to have an offline discussion about that.
Mm.
But Raidul, are you okay with this? Because you're one who's gonna have to draw information from this too. You and I think, are the two most affected by how Kartik outputs.
Yeah, the the current way the ABM model is set up, it can take finer granularity, but I just will need to tweak the output or the way the model reads at the end of the decision-making process to understand what granularity we are thinking about. But yeah, I should be able to work out that soon. It shouldn't be a problem for me from the modeling perspective.
Okay, well, I want us to, sorry, I'm putting these discussion boxes on our chart.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, we could have a separate working meeting where, we actually look at the data, look at the numbers, and then, make some decisions. So, yeah, we could meet, Raidul and you, and if Nashima wants to join, we could just have, a working meeting and actually look at things and then, decide.
Yeah, that would be great. And I think, so I think nobody's ever really comfortable with like saying, oh, yes, this is our decision model, because there could be so much else to it. And then there's the calibration question. But I think we're at least somewhat settled on being able to start with these little green boxes, see where it goes. And then once we get the skills to do that, we can change or tweak it.
That's fine. Fine. I gotta run.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
Kartik, we'll find a time to.
All right, okay, yeah, sounds good. Yeah, we'll do.
Okay, thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Okay.
Bye.